first of all, let's just start out. I would love it if you could introduce yourselves. And I don't know, Ben, if you want to start down there. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today with the Tribeca Film Festival.
Sure. My name is Ben Thompson. I'm the VP of short film programming at Tribeca. I'm not originally from New York, as you can probably tell. I came out here to become a filmmaker, and one of the first jobs I was able to get was at Tribeca, and I thought this was a great job to learn about kind of filmmaking, and yeah, here I am maybe 20 years later. So I'm still doing it. So yeah, that's me.
Wonderful.
I'm Cara Cusumano. I'm the festival director, also at Tribeca. I work with Ben. I have been the festival director here for the last 7 years. I've been with the company for 17, and a lot like Ben, I knew I wanted to do film. I enjoyed watching films more than making films, and it turns out that was a job that they would pay me to do, which I was very excited to learn. And I started kind of screening and programming at a junior level at Tribeca, and I've had pretty much every job in the programming department between that and this.
Wonderful.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Margolin, and I am not a festival director. I am a producer, and I've been producing since 2016 and produced 10 films and a couple of two shorts, mostly documentaries, but my background is in distribution and marketing prior to 2016. So I was thinking back with these guys, the first Sundance that I attended, and I've been to Sundance every year since then, except for one when my daughter was born, 1989. So I've had films premiere at I've been fortunate enough to have films premiere at many of the major film festivals, so I'm happy to talk to you all today.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Lipp. I'm the director and founder of the Big Apple Film Festival here in New York City. The festival started back in 2003, so we are now in existence for 22 years. The festival has screened all types of films over the years, genre films like horror, as well as documentaries, feature narrative, shorts, animation. We have a student film section. We have music videos as well. We also have a screenplay competition. The festival began at the Anthology Film Archives, which is sort of an iconic, legendary film venue here in New York City, down in the East Village. Since then, we have presented the festival at various venues around Manhattan. We've also had some satellite festivals outside of New York. We've done some events out in Los Angeles, in Florida, but primarily the festival is here in New York City. Okay.
I'm Caryn Coleman. First and foremost, I'm a film programmer, but I'm also the founder and director of the nonprofit organization The Future of Film is Female, which I founded in 2018. It was an extension of the work that I was doing while director of programming at Nighthawk Cinema, and I founded the Nighthawk Shorts Festival in 2013 there. It's still going, it's still wonderful. Please apply. But the work that I do is really kind of focusing on this now what? You have your film made. We do have a short film production fund, but really my focus is on exhibition and distribution at the moment. Making sure that audiences are connected with films is my priority in the work that I'm doing.
Thank you all so much. And we'll just keep diving in now into the process of being part of film festivals. When we think of 2025 with film festivals, so much has changed in the industry, especially recently in the last few years, with so many things, the pandemic, the strikes, the fires out in LA. And so there's been a lot of focus on the indie world. And to me, that feels like what film festivals are about, although there's so much that happens at the film festivals to make it something that's no longer indie, but then moving out into the world through distribution. Could you talk about your viewpoints about film festivals and how they're important today for the emerging filmmaker? Caryn, do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, I have mixed feelings about the importance of film festivals for feature films. I think that we are coming into a time in which, you know, your film premiering at Sundance or winning Sundance doesn't even guarantee you film distribution. I think that might speak more to a distribution landscape for independent films than it does for film festivals itself, because I think that film festivals, for the most part, have really wonderful programming and have equitable programming. And it's a great way for buyers, sales agents to see these works, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee a life. And so I think a lot of us are trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we give it that life? But I also think for short films in particular, since that's the conversation today, is that film festivals, because a lot of regular programming in cinemas, festivals are a great way for you to get your short film out into the world and into audiences, and more importantly, to meet other people making short films and be in collaboration and community with them. I think if you have a short film, you should be in as many short films as possible, because you rarely see short films in theaters, and there's different audiences in Texas than there are in New York. So I think that, like, festivals for features are good launching off points, and I think that festivals for shorts are almost essential for it to have its life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that festivals, first and foremost, are a great opportunity for networking. I think that, you know, if you have a short film or even a feature film, it's an opportunity to meet with other filmmakers. I mean, I know personally from our festival, I know of many stories over the years where filmmakers have met and gone on to work on projects together. So the networking part of it, I think, is super important. However, at the same time, I will say festivals are certainly not the only part of the journey in a filmmaking career. It's just sort of one component, but I do think that one of the most important things also is to build your own audience and to sort of you know, prepare yourself not just to be a filmmaker, but also sort of an entrepreneur in a way as well. Because I think a lot of filmmakers go into festivals viewing it as almost like it's sort of like the end-all, be-all. If I get into certain festivals, that's it. I'm in. You know, I've got a distributor now. My movie's coming out. I get it. But I just think that that's one component of it. I think maybe some years ago it was different. I don't know. You know, you hear about some of these stories years ago. A film got into Sundance or something and won a big award and got distribution and did very well and all that. But I think now, because of the because there's just so much content out there because of the streaming networks, there's just so much content that I think you really need to sort of find your own audience, your own niche, and use film festivals, but don't rely upon them, I would say.
Susan, what's your viewpoint on it as a producer?
Well, I really do put a lot of focus and emphasis on film festivals for my films, and you know, partly it's about you know, kind of having that launch. So you know, for instance, I have a film called Monk in Pieces right now that's about to open theatrically at the IFC Center, and we had our launch at the Berlin Film Festival, and you know, it you know, kind of sets a tone for the path of the film. You know, having a film premiere at a festival like Tribeca or a festival like Berlin or Sundance does set the film apart, because it's been, you know, kind of curated. It's got the imprimatur of the festival, and you know, that's very important. And we did, you know, kind of get that that ring, that, you know, golden ring, when we were able to secure a distribution deal right after Berlin. So that I know that, you know, distribution is very tricky, especially for shorts these days. So I'm not saying that is, you know, the only path. And I 100% agree that, you know, it's up to you as the filmmaker, as the participant in the short film, to begin thinking about how you're going to connect with your audience, and a film festival is one of those, kind of one of the ways that you can do that.
I feel like it's an interesting time to be a film festival, and obviously much conversation is happening around the industry as a whole and the challenges, which are very real. But at the same time, from our side, we're seeing, we just wrapped our festival a couple weeks ago. We saw record high submissions, particularly in the shorts. We're seeing more audiences than ever before. We're seeing increase in badge sales. So, I try to figure out, is that the festival kind of benefiting from fewer places to see this kind of work, that we're actually consolidating a certain audience because there are fewer art house cinemas, or these kinds of independent films are not being distributed more widely, or is there's actually sort of an untapped wealth of creators out there that we could be doing more for. So certainly when I first started at Tribeca, the value proposition of the festival is very much about come here and sell your film. And the distributors would come, they cover the films from Tribeca, they buy them, they go out into the world. And that still happens, but we have been very mindful about diversifying what the benefit of being at Tribeca is. So it's not purely about the business of selling completed films, but talent discovery markets, works in progress, networking opportunities, elevating short films in a way that I'm sure Ben will speak to. So I think that everyone else sort of touched on this in a similar way, but really thinking carefully about what your festival strategy looks like in a way that's not purely about selling a completed work, but is about a longer term proposition and relationship with the festival and with the community.
And Cara, may I just add that you added in pilots that independent pilots also into the program at Tribeca. And how long ago was that you started doing that?
It's been a while. So that program began as kind of a web series program and then broadened to be kind of indie episodic. But our mentality is always sort of what do we see happening in the world, and how do we amplify it and play a curatorial role that helps connect it to the business. So pilots, audio, games, shorts, we're trying to kind of respond to the impulses that the creative community has and play a role in servicing that, rather than us being, as a festival, saying like, pilots are happening, this is the year of X. It has to go kind of the other way. It comes from you all.
I actually came to Tribeca originally. I bought a ticket to, I think it was the second festival. I had come to New York. I'd heard about this festival, and I really didn't know what to see. There were so many features. There were so many different things going on. So I just bought a ticket to a short film program. I thought, I'll see a bunch of different films, and I might like some of them, I might not, but I've never seen shorts showcased anywhere before. And I enjoyed the program and ended up working at the festival many years later. But I think festivals are really a great way to discover, especially filmmakers and also many performers at the start of their careers. And I've watched that kind of evolve over the decades at Tribeca. Like you have that opportunity, particularly with short films, because they are the films that people are able to make and realize without spending kind of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and in a short amount of time, and also explore their ideas. So festivals are just such a great tool for discovery, and I think Susan touched on it, a platform as well for showcasing work that you really otherwise wouldn't see anywhere else. So it's still hard to see shorts. They are now streaming. They are on various platforms, but unless you are actually going out and seeking those, it's much easier to kind of go to a festival and see a program and like, oh, these are all going to be science fiction shorts. I'm really interested in science fiction, so that sounds like the program for me, and I'll check it out. And I think for anyone who is starting out their career or kind of working in the industry, it's a great opportunity to see also what other people are doing and what you can realize as well with kind of the resources you have. So I think it's encouraging. Discovery and encouraging.
Well, I'll tell you, it was hard to get tickets this year to Tribeca. They go on sale, they're gone. I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but you've got to get on it, which speaks to the popularity of the festivals here in New York. And I would imagine, well, I haven't been to anything outside of the United States, so it's interesting to hear your experience. Also, going to Berlin this year, and congratulations to you, Susan. Is that a doc that you did?
Yes.
So I want to find out a little bit about when should we, as emerging filmmakers, start putting into our budget the idea of submitting for film festivals. Where should that start? Should that start at the top when we're looking at pre-production? And how would we even know what part of the budget to set aside for film festivals? Would someone like to? We don't have to go in a row if you don't want to, but feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to that a little bit. So I actually have line items pertaining to festival applications, festival premieres, and festival publicity in my production budget. And I really do recommend doing that. And travel, if I didn't say that, because travel is a pretty significant expense, and most festivals are not in a position to pay for travel. Sometimes they'll offer hotel, but not always, and they seldom offer airfare anymore. So you really have to build in, if you want to go to 4 or 5 or 6 festivals, then factor in your travel. Publicity, you want, ideally you have a publicist in a perfect world there at the festival with you. So you have to factor in the cost of having a publicist, which could be, in some cases, I'm factoring in $10,000 for my features for on-site publicity with a major publicist. Not to scare everybody, but it's good to plan. And then, of course, festival applications, and you can find out on Film Freeway what the cost of applying to the festivals that you want to apply for, and you can just add that and in an aggregate line item in your budget.
And I just want to ask you too, how does that differ then maybe when you're looking at your features that you have coming up and then your shorts? How might that change in terms of budget?
Yeah, I generally don't have enough of a budget to have a publicist for my shorts. That's just the reality. But everything else, the travel remains the same, and the application fees vary for shorts; they're a little bit different. But again, important to have those line items.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think having a plan in place certainly helps, knowing which festivals you want to target, which festivals you feel are the best fit for your film, having those discussions within your production team. If you have a producer's rep or a sales agent or some sort of film festival consultant, I think is a great idea as well. Just having a plan in place, and then from there you can determine a budget.
And a lot of festivals do tiered submissions, so plan it out as a calendar, and you can save money by submitting in earlier windows. We hear people asking for fee waivers all the time, and it is challenging emails to get when people are saying, Tribeca is our first choice, but we spent all our money on submitting to other festivals. So I think that it happens constantly. So I think that really, to your point as well, having a holistic sense of what festivals you want to target, which ones are sort of reaches, which ones are safe, when those deadlines are, will really help you so that you're not in a position of not being able to afford to submit to the festival that's actually like one of your top picks.
And to touch upon Jonathan's point as well, research, you can save yourself a lot in festival submissions if you do have a strategy, if you do look at the type of festivals that will and can potentially play your film if you're submitting to 10 festivals and your 10 festivals are Cannes, Venice, Toronto, Tribeca, Sundance, Berlin, then that's not a great strategy. Not only because they are all festivals with very high volume submissions and low acceptance rates, but also because they're all festivals that screen different types of films as well. So it's unlikely that your film will fit all of those different programming ideologies. So looking at kind of, okay, my film is, let's say it's a narrative drama that has kind of horror aspects, look at kind of the types of festivals that have that programming. And again, it can be very daunting to go into this world and just not know, how many films people are watching, if they're going to respond to your films. So arming yourself with that kind of research and that will kind of give you confidence. And just having an idea of 1 in 10 is actually a pretty good rate. If you're submitting to 10 festivals and getting into one, that's great. 5 in 20 is possible, or 30 or so forth, but you're not going to get into every festival you're applying. But if you look at, again, what festivals are looking for, that also helps.
There can be a surprising degree of specialization too with there's the bicycle film festival and the surfing film festival. Where are you from? Where was your film shot? You kind of go to the festivals that are local and might have a particular interest. I used to work for the Hamptons, and they had one whole short program devoted to films that were shot out east. I made a short film, which Ben was planning to tell you all about, to my embarrassment, so I'm going to beat him to it. But I was not getting into festivals when I was submitting, and then I started identifying my own film as an environmental film and as a experimental film. And then that allowed me to submit directly to specific festivals and competitions, and suddenly I got into 12.
Oh, well, and Cara, can you just tell with that kind of thing, because I think I certainly didn't realize when you start looking at Film Freeway, which can be a little overwhelming, because there's not this sense of it's linear. I mean, as far as when you submit, this all lines up. This is so perfect. No, instead, it's if you're trying to get a premiere somewhere, and you're not going to hear from another festival, though, until later on, doing all of the math or the equation with your goals about what you want to put out there, when is the right time to, put this into the festival? So for you, when you figured out exactly what your niche was around your film, what part of the process was that for you, and how long did you give yourself with your film to be out there looking to be into film festivals?
Yeah, I mean, now you start to get into kind of the premiere status strategy around things, which is challenging for me personally. Yes, it can be less of a thing for shorts, but it is a thing for shorts still. But what I did with mine, just one strategy, was I took a significant amount of time to submit to do what Ben said not to do: submit to Sundance, Toronto, South by, and get rejected from all of them, and then I went back to the drawing board a little and was like, okay, so let me think of this more as a niche film for specific festivals. And none of the festivals I ended up playing at were premiere status based festivals. So I was able to do it on a rolling basis and start to just accept things as I got into them. I program features primarily, so our premiere status recommendation is maybe different from what Ben would say for shorts. But typically, if you are a feature that's submitting and you have say you really want to be at Tribeca, obviously you can't just wait 8 months until you hear from us. But I am happy to get an email from someone saying, I've submitted to another festival at the same time. I've been accepted there. I've been given 2 weeks to give them my decision, but I'd rather premiere at Tribeca. Do you have any kind of early update for us? Often the answer is no. And we say, good luck with your premiere, and we'll continue to consider it for its New York premiere. But equally often we say, actually, we would like to play that film, and we're happy to offer you an early invitation.
So much to think about. I also just want to touch on just quickly, when you go to Film Freeway, and you can make an account for yourself, you can make a free account just to get the landscape there, just so you can see what's going on. is that it's going to cost you the least amount of money if you start with the early deadline, the early bird deadline, so to speak. And then as it gets closer to the deadline, it costs more and more. So how might one want to navigate that, and the feeling of sort of like self-tapes? Are they still going to watch the film as it gets closer and closer to the deadline? Or are the programmers exhausted and the reality is maybe I should just wait until next year to submit?
Well, I always find I can't get exhausted while I'm looking at submissions, whether it's for our short film fund or for the short screenings that we open submissions for, because I swear to you, it's always the last one that is like, holy moly, I have to have it. So I don't know why. So I always am like, okay, we gotta keep holding out. I will say for our screenings, we do one at Nighthawk. It's actually 2 screenings in September, and we just charge a flat $25, so it doesn't go up or anything like that. But I think it's just part of strategizing, like we've been talking about, what your priorities are, and looking at some of the smaller festivals like Atlanta Film Festival, New Next Festival, the Baltimore MDF, MDF Parkway. Yes. And just all these, in Indie Memphis, like all these great little Palm Springs shorts festivals, and sort of seeing what it works, because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, like Tribeca shorts, you don't have premiere anymore, right?
We took away that, yeah.
And when I applaud you so much, because it's so that's why I went, ugh, because it's so silly for short films, because like, would always make me upset that a short filmmaker would miss an opportunity to screen somewhere so they could screen somewhere else when there was no chance that like any of those same audiences would see the film. And so I like that there is a sense, and to a degree Sundance is like that too. They don't have to have premiere for shorts if they're good and they want them in the program, but it's so much more democratizing because shorts are not like features, and they need all the help that they can get to get out into the world. But if you submit late, your shorts will be watched, at least with us, because they're always really good.
I was going to say, Caryn, I think this is the first time this festival we've had something that's played Nighthawk and played Tribeca, which was Baby Tooth, which actually played in front of a feature.
And that's one of the feature film is female filmmakers.
Oh my God, really?
We supported a doc she made about
Olivia, yes.
her cat, the ghost of her cat haunting her house.
Well, you also and just to kind of touch upon an earlier point as well, you have the Big Apple Film Festival, you have Nighthawk Film Festival, you have all of these other festivals that are great festivals for showcasing your work. If you're in New York, why are you not submitting to Big Apple or Nighthawk or Tribeca? Like these are festivals that are right here. So I think you can look where you happen to be. This is your backyard, your home city, and strategize as well around the festivals that are right here.
How about for you, Jonathan?
I mean, yeah, in terms of the early bird versus the final deadlines, I think it's subjective. I mean, you'll have films that come along early that you definitely want, and early on, this is a film we want to secure for our festival, and you know it. But then you also have films that come in last minute, even on the last day. Where you're like, wow, this is, we can't miss out on this. This is a great opportunity and whatnot. But also in terms of budgeting, I think it's also important to do research on the various film festivals and just be well informed. Because, for example, there are festivals, let's say, that have a premiere requirement. I know Tribeca no longer for the shorts, but I believe features, it's Northeast, right? Is that Northeast?
For us, you have to be a world premiere to be in competition and a New York premiere to be in the festival.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, having, that information and that knowledge beforehand, so that way, you're not just going and spending money, and not being aware of what their requirements are and whatnot. So, I just think, being informed, just knowing the background of the different festivals, looking at their history, and kind of knowing their rules and regulations and policies.
I just want to add I think it's impossible to kind of handicap whether early or late is more advantageous because you don't know what's going on the other side. And there are years where we see things early and take them that we maybe wouldn't have taken later, or we see things late that maybe we wouldn't have taken earlier. So you just can't know that. But I would also take it at face value that the reason we have tiered prices is to incentivize people to submit early, because it's too hard for us to get everything at the end. So we need to have like a steady stream of things to watch in order to program the festival. But you mentioned like, will my film even be watched at the end? And this is something we hear all the time, is like, when we're saying, how many submissions was it this year, Ben?
Shorts 8,904.
So yeah, people are like, you're not watching all those films, right? And we are, because truly every programmer lives in fear of missing something, of something falling through the cracks, of missing out on opportunity. Like we're going back and watching things again just to be safe. So the kind of insecurity that I know where it comes from, because you submit and then you don't hear anything, and then you get a form letter. So it's very easy to feel like, was my film fairly considered? And I just want to take every opportunity to assure every potential submitter that the depth of consideration that goes into it is extreme, and Ben in particular is kind of so committed to making sure that everything is treated fairly and fully watched. So I want to make sure that is communicated.
Well, I love hearing that, and I'm sure everyone here loves hearing that too, because there's such a sense of the not knowing as you send it out into the ether. You click send, and there it goes. Just to touch just a little bit more on specifics around Film Freeway, do you think it is advantageous when you're adding things like your cover letter to be really specific to the film? Susan, you're nodding your head. You want to talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's great to add as much additional detail on Film Freeway as you can. So maybe some stills, maybe some additional information in the cover letter about the location and why the location is specific, to, and might be relevant to a film festival. For instance, I'm working on a film that was shot in Rock Springs, Wyoming, which is, 2 hours from Sundance. So it's kind of a local film for that festival. So, of course, we'll point that out. So any kind of like local texture, I think is, might be helpful. And I do hear from programmers that they actually often do look at the additional materials. I mean, I see you nodding.
Yeah, totally. I think the more information, the better. I think it's great. A cover letter, information about the filmmaker, information about the cast, websites, social, like everything. I like to know all of that information. When we get an entry and it's like blank and there's no information, that's can be a little frustrating. Like, oh, this movie's good, but and then you have to go do the research yourself, and you start trying to Google who the director is and who the cat. I think the more information, the better. I think is ideal.
Ben, do you see that on your side too with programming?
Yes, absolutely. And it all becomes important, especially if you are selected as well, because festivals are going to ask for that. So you might as well have it ready right from the beginning. The way I look through our database, and again, the number I said earlier was quite scary. I can break it down and make it less scary. But I will often read the description of the film and pull things into my queue that look interesting. Not all programmers do that. I know a lot that just like to watch totally blind and not to know anything about the film. I am usually intrigued by the synopsis. So if you have a short description of the film, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, I'll take a look at it. That is something that will, I guess, elevate you above the pile. In terms of kind of the sheer amount of films that we get submitted, and this is, a lot of festivals in the world get a lot of submissions. If you break it down to how many we selected, it's about 1 in 95. I did the math earlier, which is less scary. And it depends what you have, if it's a documentary, if it's a genre film, if it's a student film, if it's a New York film. Like Tribeca specializes in New York films, as I'm sure like Big Apple and Nighthawk do. If you have a film that's shot here or set here or cast here, then we're getting a lot fewer New York films than that whole kind of number. It's really in the hundreds. So that gives you a better chance. and you're all here, so you're New Yorkers, I'm guessing.
If you really want to play the numbers, make a short doc, right?
Oh yeah, short animated docs. I think hit kind of like
1 in 5.
Yeah, so many categories. Yeah.
Good stat.
Okay, so let's say you made your film, you submitted to different film festivals, you got into some film festivals. What should your goal be as an emerging filmmaker, and how can you make the most of a festival experience?
I mean, I think your goal should be to try and encourage as many people as possible to engage with your short film. I think that goes into having the strategy you were talking about having PR if you can, but also just figuring out ways in which to invite your friends, family members, neighbors, strangers on the street to come and see your short film. And I think as you leverage that, or you get into film festivals, like Tribeca, and then you're like, and now we go to the next one, and just really make it like a journey that people can follow along with on social media. I mean, it doesn't have to be, that sounds hokey, but I don't mean it that way. Like, I really mean just, it's cool when you're like, oh, I love this film, and this is where it's going next. I get excited with my filmmakers, like, oh, now they're going here, and we're excited to share that. And then I think, my programming work, not festivals, is I like to show short films in cinemas before features, or have short programs that are not festival based, but just a program that you go see, a curated program to go see. And I feel as if once you start kind of developing that community of other filmmakers, that becomes almost second nature and organic, and being part of that and getting the film out, and then it's on to the next one. Yeah.
And Jonathan, you spoke earlier about like creating a community to start out with, and
yeah, I think well, in terms of what your goals should be, I think it all depends on your film and what your individual unique goals are for your particular film. So your goal might be to build a community, right? Like, for example, if you have made a horror film, you may want to go to horror festivals with it so that you can meet horror audiences and get press in horror publications like Fangoria or something like that. If you've made a short film, maybe you're trying to get financing to make your feature, or maybe it's a standalone short. You don't want it to become a feature, but you do want to try to maybe sell it to a streaming platform, right? It all depends what your film is and what your goals are, right? If you made a documentary, maybe you want to try to sell it to PBS, or maybe you've made a $10 million independent film with an A-list actor, and your goal is to sell it to a major distributor. So I think it really all depends on what your specific goals are for your specific project.
Some film festivals will share the industry list of who's attending in advance. So it's good to look at that list and see who's on there, and then see if you can reach out to those people that might help your career as you move on to the next stage. So maybe, reach out and see if you can, have a coffee while you're there at the festival, or if you notice that there's going to be a panel and somebody you want to meet is on a panel, you can go to the panel and you can introduce yourself as, having a film at the festival after the panel, and, just exchange, bounce your phones together or exchange cards. And, that's a really great way of starting to build your network for an emerging filmmaker.
I mean, for Tribeca specifically, I would echo this and sort of networking element, because Tribeca is able to convene such a great cross-section of different kinds of artists, different levels of artists. I think sometimes networking as a concept or as a word sounds a little cynical, that it's about, trying to get something out of the highest level person that you're able to meet with. But I think it's actually really just about meeting each other, because it's a surprisingly small creative community once you're in it. And as you are at a festival with other people who have a first film at a festival, suddenly in a couple years, those people have features at that festival, or the, junior executive that you met is now a senior executive. So that sort of more organic networking, I think, is something that can happen at a really great festival.
And I think there's especially with short films, there's an accessibility. Like, if you were just going to go to a program, a program of short films, and you see one that really resonates with you, and you think, oh my God, this director is great. I really love their work. I would like to work with them or collaborate with them in some way. They're right there on stage. You can say hello after the screening. You can exchange contact information. There's that accessibility that sometimes is hard to get in our industry. And you never know where that will take you. I mean, we've had many directors over the years who are now doing either Marvel films or like Ryan Coogler is a great kind of example of a short film director who was at Tribeca very early on in his career, and now you've probably seen a feature film that he's made. And so starting that kind of relationship again with directors, or if you're directing with other performers, so early can just take you never know where it'll take you. So that's an exciting part of the journey, I think.
Susan?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes filmmakers, you've finished your short and you have a new project in development. Think in advance about bringing materials for that project that's in development. Maybe it's a treatment. Depending on what stage, maybe you even have like a little sizzle reel. But think about those materials and developing them and having them in presentation form before the festival. So that when you have that meeting, you say, oh, I'm working on a new pilot, and I'd love to share information with you after the festival. Can I do that? So, not everybody is in that stage, but if you do have that next project, it's a good opportunity to start connecting the dots, as you were saying.
Also, if your short is basically a proof of concept that you're looking to make your feature, that's another great conversation I think that you could have and bring that to the table with you. Just going back for a quick second, when you're doing your submissions before you got into the wonderful film festivals, is it all right, or should you even look to contacting programmers? And if so, what are some do's and don'ts about that?
This is mixed. People have mixed opinions on this.
Sure.
I'm fine with people contacting me. I know that's not indicative of all my colleagues. The way I would ask to be contacted is you submit your film, you find me. A lot of people seem to find me. I'm not sure how or where. And you say...
The dark web.
The dark web. And you say, hi, I've submitted my film. I would love for you to take a look at it. It's 2 lines about it. Thank you so much. And I think that's a very respectful way. You may not hear back from programmers. You may get my response, which is like, thanks so much. I'll add it to my watch list and check it out. It's, to me, the equivalent of if someone out of this audience just raised their hand. You notice them, and you'll answer their question, or you'll look at their film in the same way. It doesn't guarantee anything. It might not be right for the festival, but at least that's my take on contacting programmers.
I think you're really nice. and I mean that sincerely. I think, yeah, if you want to reach out to a programmer, I think having a nice, short, brief heads up, but not an expectation of a conversation or a return. It is a lot of work to go through all of the submissions. If anything, because I'll do this to Ben, I'll be like, hey, one of our filmmakers submitted, you should check this out. But it's different when it's like colleagues sort of saying like, I've seen something and not, just because it can be very overwhelming. And I don't know how fruitful it really is. I think the work is what sort of stands out. But being polite is always nice. But I always get nervous of like, oh no, this is more work that we have to do now, and sort of starting this conversation of, I look forward to seeing your short, but Ben's nice.
Programmers probably spend about 80% of their time like answering emails. Like
Yes.
everybody thinks we spend the majority of our time watching films, but a lot of it
And
is
going to fabulous festivals.
yes, it's answering emails. If you love answering emails, become a programmer.
Become a programmer.
So glamorous.
Were you going to say something about
Yeah,
that, Jonathan?
no, I just
About
we
people
usually say,
reaching out?
if somebody reaches out, I'll respond and say, we look forward to reviewing your film. There's some exceptions if it's a filmmaker who's been in the festival in the past, especially if they've had more than one film in the festival. Let's say over the years, I'll say, I've met them before. I'm going to respond. I mean, let's say I've spoken to you, I've been at a party with you. I'm going to say, how have you been? Congratulations on completing your new film. But usually, it's we look forward to reviewing your film.
Well, and that's, again, about building relationship, building community, people knowing you. I did have a friend ask me, and we're going to be getting to audience questions in just a few minutes here, but she was saying that she has a friend who's a director and is planning to submit to a short film to a festival, and the director is actually submitting 2 different films. As a programmer, when you look at something like that, do you feel like it, she was wondering, does it discount being thought of for both films, or do you feel like that person those films would still be considered even though there's 2 by the same director?
For me, I think it's really important for you to make the decision on what is your best work and submit that forward. For me personally, I think that's part of the work and kind of figuring out what is best to submit forward. So when I see that there's 2, I feel like, I don't know, like, how do you make a choice for that? I don't know. It just seems like there's too much going on, and yeah, I prefer
Two of the same, 2 versions of the same film, or 2 totally different
2
films?
totally different films. This is what she told. This is my friend who told me from her friend who asked me to ask it.
Both shorts?
Yes, both shorts.
I mean, we wouldn't take them both. So it would, I guess you're kind of trying 2 different avenues, but yeah, I would, again, it depends. There's a lot of kind of variables.
We've had 2 films by the same director in the festival. Like this year we did.
Short
2 features. Yeah.
Really?
Jonas Ackerlund directed the Billy Idol and the Metallica.
We've had a bunch of shorts and features, maybe a short and a feature in the festival over the years. And often producers will work on multiple kind of, again, Susan, it's very possible that you might have a feature and a short as a producer in the festival.
I feel like that's different.
Yeah.
I think just the nature of our process specifically, we might not even know that until farther down the process, because every film just goes through the process. So kind of cross-referencing who the directors are wouldn't happen until we are closer to at least a short list and we're seeing everything together.
We had one filmmaker submit 5 once, and they were all fantastic.
It's its own program.
It was Ben Bradford. we could have shown all of his films, and I actually wrote to him, and we did take one of them and said, we can't show all of your films unless we're doing like a retrospective of your work. So, but great, thank you. They were all really good.
This is really helpful. Thank you so much. And just, yes,
Could
Susan,
I just
go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go
Can I
back.
to
Yes,
the
please.
previous, because I did want to say one thing. Everybody's been so generous about, people reaching out to them. And, what I recommend to be respectful is to, if you have a legitimate relationship with the programmer, then I think it's fair to reach out. I try to, if I don't have a relationship with the programmer, I try to have somebody who actually does have a relationship with the programmer who is connected to my film, who might reach out on the film's behalf. And so maybe it's an executive producer, maybe it's, a participant. Anyway, sorry to take us backwards, but
I love that. No, and it makes a lot of sense too, because we're hearing about the overwhelm, the amount of materials that you're going through, the emails that you're answering, all of the different aspects of working a film festival that, of course, none of us see. None of us see all that hard work behind it. Ben?
And everybody in this room now has a connection to us. You can say hi if you're working on a film and your director says, "Do you know anybody at Tribeca?" Well, I sat in on a panel where Ben and Cara were there, and that's my opening.
And just before we start answering questions, just because I think this is really important, are there any things that should be a red flag to us when we're submitting on Film Freeway? We could call them scams, or ways to say, really don't waste your money, don't waste your time on certain things. I don't know, Susan, I mean, you're seeing it from as a producer, so submitting films. Or are there any trends that you're hearing about, just that we might want to know about so that people can focus on submitting to places that are really going to help them and not be a waste of money?
Festivals that have been going on for a while. I think you were going to say that as well, Susan. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump. Yeah, festivals, how long they've been running is a good indicator.
Yeah, and
those are green flags.
Yeah. I don't tend to use Film Freeway's marketing. I don't know if you all feel that that's helpful. They sell, kind of ways to, kind of promote or platform your film, and I don't know. I mean,
I guess a red flag would be a 1-year festival as well if it's brand new. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not legitimate, but just kind of treat it with a healthy amount of skepticism, I guess. Like if it's just starting up, sometimes that's great. You want to be in on the first edition, and maybe it does go on for 20 years, but there's a lot of festivals that crop up for 1 or 2 years and then disappear. So if it's got longevity, that can be a good green flag, not a red one.
Caryn,
just in general, maybe this is not the case all the time, but I think there are some festivals now that are only virtual. I probably would stay away from most of them, I think.
Do you think it dilutes your film also to have something that is going to be online?
I think so. In terms of credibility, I don't think that's the ideal situation. Obviously, during COVID and all that was a very unique time, but I would try to stay away from virtual-only festivals.
Let me also mention, and we can come back to this, but not all festivals are on Film Freeway. So as you do your research about, which festivals you want to apply to, remember that there are festivals like Berlin and like Venice and Telluride, I believe, that aren't on Film Freeway. So you don't want to miss out on those by thinking that you've covered everything by applying through Film Freeway. There are ways to search for top international film festivals. So also I recommend doing that research and plotting out your festival deadlines. I use a spreadsheet. If you have a friend who's been through this recently, they might share their spreadsheet. And that's actually a good way to, kind of find out about festivals that you might not have heard about, which is, talk to other filmmakers and, see where they applied and where they had good experiences.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Let's please give a big round of applause to our fabulous panel. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.